name's Teresa. Welcome to my channel. Thank you for joining me here today. Today we're going to be working on the gel plate and we're going to be using distress inks. I get asked a lot, can you use distress inks on the plate? What can you do with them? So hopefully today I'll answer a few of your questions. I'm going to create a load of backgrounds, a couple of completed projects just for inspiration for you, and just show you how simple it is to create some colourful, vibrant prints using just a few products today. So I'm going to move these out of the way, get set up with my plate, and I'll be back to show you how it's done. As always, I'm going to give you a quick rundown of what I'm using today. The plate that I'm using today is my 5" by 7" gel plate, my Jelly Arts gel printing plate. I'm going to be printing onto some watercolor paper today, simply because the distress inks they are quite wet. We will be using some water with them, and if you use a very smooth and lightweight paper, it's going to run, it's going to crinkle the paper up, and I find with watercolor paints, water-based inks, anything that is quite wet, a proper watercolor paper is going to give you better results. It's what it's designed for. It'll absorb the colour in the water much better and will stand up to buckling better than some of the more lightweight papers and cardstocks. So I've got some of that. That's cut to about 4.5 by 6 inches. I just cut a larger piece down into 4 pieces, so I have some of that. I've got a brayer. This is my Speedball rubber brayer. I have a spray bottle with some water in it, and of course I've got my distress inks. These are the Ranger distress inks. I have a selection of colours. I've just picked nice bright vibrant colours. It's springtime, I want to do something colourful, and I've picked colours that are not too similar to each other. There's a lot of colours in the range, and a lot of them are quite similar. And once you start sort of diluting and blending them, although they are designed to blend really softly, in this respect, for what I'm doing today, I want some nice sort of contrasting colours as well. So I've got mustard seed, carved pumpkin, candied apple, picked raspberry, wilted violet, twisted citron, peacock feathers, lucky clover, blueprint sketch, and hickory smoke. So I've picked those 10 colours there. We'll use any or all of them. Not sure, don't know if I'll use them all, but nice selection of colours right across the colour spectrum. And I'm hopefully going to answer some questions with today's video. A while back I did a video using distress oxide inks on the gel plate. Now I'll link that up in the corner. I'll also link it in the end card. Lots of the questions that I got on that video are, will this techniques work with distress inks? Well, distress inks and distress oxide inks, although similar, are different products. Distress oxide inks have pigment in them as well as dye. Distress inks are purely dye-based, water-based ink. And my answer was, although you could use them in the same way, the results that you got were not going to be the same. They're going to bead up on the plate because they're wet. They're not going to lie flat and smooth like a pigment ink would do better, and like an acrylic paint lies nice and flat and smooth. They won't do that. Don't expect them to do that. They will behave more like watercolours, water-soluble crayons that I've used in the past. And they're not going to create crisp, sharp prints. Don't expect them to do that. Don't feel disappointed if they don't do that. If that's the sort of print that you want, use acrylic paint. That's the results you'll get with acrylic paint. With water-based products, with these dye-based inks, it's going to be a lot more fluid. It's going to be softer, more watercolor effect, and that's what I'm going for. That's what I'm going to work with when I get. So to work with the results you get. Don't try and force products to do what they don't do. Is what I'm trying to say. So this will be a bit of an experiment to show you what you get, what you can get, and not to feel that this is wrong because it doesn't look like gel printing with acrylic paint. It's just a different technique with different results, another way of using products that you may or may not already have, trying to use them together and get the most out of the products that you've got, get the most versatility out of them. So to begin with, I'm going to put some colour on the plate. And the one other thing that I will say that you need to bear in mind is distress inks are transparent colour. So when you layer one colour over another colour, they're going to mix. You're going to get a blend of those two colours. So think about colours that you're using together. If you use a yellow and an orange and a red, when they overlap with each other, they're still going to look good. If you were to overlap a red and a green, you're going to get a muddy brown. A purple and an orange will give you a muddy brown. But a blue and a yellow would give you a green. A red and a yellow would give you an orange. So think carefully about that. Take a look on a colour wheel and choose colours that are close to each other, not opposite each other. Otherwise, you may be disappointed that you end up just with everything looking just very dark, sort of muddy brown colour. But let's get on. Let's have a go. Let's see what we can do. So to start with, I'm going to just apply some ink to the plate direct from the pad. So this is mustard seed, twisted citron, and peacock feathers. I'm going to spritz a little bit of water. This is just clean water. And I don't know if you can see, if I just zoom you in a little bit, you can see how that ink is beading up on the surface. So I'll just zoom you back out again. Because the gel plate kind of resists water, this is why you get this beaded effect. And this is what will prevent you getting a very smooth finish. But I'm going to work with this. So this is my, this is going to be my background, my first layer. I'm just going to take my watercolor cardstock. And there's my, as you see, you've got a nice sort of watercolour but uneven blended background. I'm just going to set that aside to dry for a little bit. I'm going to clean this off. As I say, because the paints, because the inks are transparent and will mix and blend, you do want to be cleaning your plate in between, otherwise you will end up with a sort of a muddy mess around the edge if there's any ink left on there. So next I'm going to think, what can I do to create some additional design onto that background that we've done there. So I'm going to take a couple of other colours. Because I've used the yellow, the green and the blue, I'm going to take a darker green and a darker blue, Lucky Clover Blueprint Sketch. And I'm going to apply some of this to the plate. Again, just adding a bit of water just to help that sort of colour move a little bit. And I'm going to take a stencil. So this stencil that I'm using is one by Lavinia Stamps, and it's called Coral. All the stencils I'm using today are fairly large, bold, simple designs. Anything with very fine detail, because we're using such a wet medium, you're going to lose it. It'll seep and run and you'll lose it. So I've tried to choose sort of simpler designs for today's projects. So this, although it's still a little damp, it's not wet on the surface, so I'll be absolutely fine using it. I'm going to take that and press it down. And that's added a detail. As you can see, because it's wet, it's not so crisp. It does seep, it moves, but I like that. I like the effect that we've got there. A really nice background. So I'm going to lift the stencil off. And I'm going to see what's left on this plate on another piece of the watercolour card. And pulled that off, and we've got almost a ghost print of that stencil. Again, really nice, and I could go and add some a pale colour over that as well, which I might do. So once again, I'm going to clean this plate off. And I'm going to take the stencil that I'd lifted off, which, as you can see, still has ink on it from where it was facing the plate. I'm going to pop that back down on the plate, press it down. Might just press it down a little bit with a paper towel, try to avoid getting too much of it on my fingers. And I'm going to take the peacock feathers and apply that directly over the top of the stencil. Now I don't want to add more water at this point because I don't want to lose any of the pattern that I'm hoping to get here. So I'm just going to use the brayer just to even out that coating of ink a little bit. Let's add a little bit more. Going to lift that up and see what we get this time. And there we've got a nice image of the negative of the stencil, but with that addition of the colour that's transferred from the ink that was left on it. So as you can see, if I bring these back in, 3 different effects from just using that one stencil there and those couple of colours. So once again, I'm going to clean off my plate. Okay, so next let's try something with some warm colours this time. So I'm going to use mustard seed, carved pumpkin and candied apple. And again, I'm going to begin by applying some colour directly onto the plate. Give that a light misting of water. And once again, take my watercolour card and transfer some of that colour over. This time let's have a look how much colour we've got left, and if you want to use up what we've got around the edge, you can always try picking it up in sections. And this will give a looser much more watery effect. There's less ink on there, and obviously we don't have the defined lines anymore because we've removed most of that with the first print. But if you don't want to waste any of that colour, there you've got a second watercoloured background from that same first amount of ink. So now we can just clean off the rest. And we'll give these a moment to dry. Bear in mind this second one is wetter, so will take a little bit longer. So this time I'm going to stay quite similar. I'm going to keep the picked raspberry for our next layer. I'm applying that all over. And I'm going to use this DecoArt Americana Decor stencil. The number on it is 201606 if anybody's interested. I don't remember the name of it, unfortunately, but I'm going just to decide on placement. I think I'm going to place it slightly off centre here. And I'm going to pop my piece of card down and transfer colour through that stencil. Like so. And as you can see, where the pink mixes with the yellow, it's creating more of a reddish tone, just simply because it's a transparent colour and they're layering over each other. So again, this is why it's important to pick colours that will work well together. So I'm going to lift that off, and we've still got some of the ink left on the plate, so I'm going to take my second piece of cardstock and create a second print using that one. And with this one we have the negative. Again, really like that. By not adding extra water, it's kept the design a little crisper, but as you can see, it's not a completely smooth lay down of colour. There is this beading that you get because it's a wet product on top of the gel plate. So I'm going to clean my plate, a bit more water. And we've got ink here on this stencil. So let's see if we can transfer some of that back onto the plate. And I'm going to take the mustard seed and apply that through this stencil. Lift off the stencil and see what we've got here. And again, another totally different effect. Because our colours are separated and not layered, you're getting the true colours of the ink pads, as opposed to here where they're layered on top of each other. Really like that. Really, and that's nice and bright and vibrant. Very happy with that one. So bringing all three into frame at once. 3 different variations again, using one group of colours and a stencil. This time I'm going to work with the picked raspberry, peacock feathers and wilted violet. Hopefully those 3 colours should work well for me. And we're going to try, instead of putting a solid background down first, we'll try layering designs with the stencil. So I'm applying the picked raspberry. The stencil I'm going to use for this one is number 41 by All and Create. And it's this quite nice sort of open, sort of blob shaped, almost egg shapes. I'm not going to add any water. Let's see what we get without adding any water. So that's the image that we get without using any water. I can lift this off and take a print of what's left on the plate. And there we get our negative image. Quite often I really actually like these better than the original one. Just going to clean off my plate again. I'm also going to clean off my stencil, because there is still some ink left on there. And I know I could pop that down on the plate again, but for this purpose I'm just going to go and give this a quick wash. So next I'm going to use the peacock feathers. Taking the same stencil, laying it down in a different orientation this time. I'm going to take my first print, and print over the top. Going to remove the stencil. I'm going to take my second print that I did, and lay that down. Really liking the effect that you get here, almost like those sort of the 3D images that you look at with the 3D glasses. Very nice layered effect. Once again, I'm going to clean off my plate. I'm going to clean off my stencil. Now, it was my intention to use the wilted violet, repeat this process again on top. But I really like this how it is, and I'm concerned that if I do put another colour on, that I'll lose some of this white space, and it might become a bit too dark. So I'm going to quit while I'm ahead here and leave these two as they are. I really like them just with the two layers. So let's use the purple and the pink together. So the wilted violet and picked raspberry. Let's add a little bit of water this time. And lay down some background colour on the watercolour card. Like so. Let's add a little bit more water and pick up some colour onto another background. So there's our two backgrounds. I'm going to clean off the plate. Just give the backgrounds a moment or two to dry. So next up, let's add a layer onto those. So I'm going to use the hickory smoke. It's a nice grey tone. Going to take a stencil. This one's by Visible Image. If I remember correctly, I think it's called Time Tunnel. I'm going to use that and transfer through onto this background. Like so. I'm going to take the remains of the ink and transfer it onto our other background. Like so. And there's the difference between the two. One's a little bit more intense than the other. Again, just going to clean off the plate. And to see if we can transfer this ink that's sitting on the stencil back again. And I'm going to take a contrasting colour. Let's take this Twisted Citron. Apply that through the stencil. And pull a print on a fresh piece of card. Like so. I do like that effect that we get, a nice sort of crisp effect there. Now, I still have some of the Twisted Citron ink left on this stencil, so I've got one piece of watercolor card left. So I'm going to press it down. I'm just going to use paper towel because there may still be grey ink left on the back of here. So I want to both try and transfer the green and lift off the grey. And let's take finally the peacock feathers. Apply that through there. And take our final piece of cardstock and create one last print. Like so. So those are our last two that we've done. So I'm going to clean up my plate, clean off my stencil for the final time, just wipe down the surface, and I'll come back and show you what we've created today. So here we are with our finished prints. We started off with the very wet watercolory effect prints using the Lavinia Stamps stencil, and we created a few different variations with the colours and that one stencil. Next we moved on to the Americana Decor circular stencil and went for some nice bright hot colours, again getting lots of different effects. Then we used the All and Create stencil. I was originally going to use 3 colours, but I just loved the effect with just the 2, so stopped with that. Again, we did a positive and negative effect with that one stencil. And then finally moving on to the visible image stencil with the spiral, and we created 4 different prints just by varying the colours and pulling negative and positive images. So I normally create quite a few samples with what I've done. I'm going to create a couple of finished cards. I'm not going to use many. It's already quite a long video as this is. But I shall just come back at the end and show you a couple of finished projects just as ideas of what to use with the prints that we've done today. So here are 3 finished examples of what you can do with the backgrounds. This one here, simply matted onto some contrasting card, used a lovely sentiment. This is Gina K Designs set of stamps, Be the Rainbow stamp set by Emily Loggins. Really like that. Again, just a bold background. It didn't need much else, so just a lovely sentiment on top of there. This one here with the layered ovals, I just die cut a sentiment. This one is by Crafter's Companion, part of their Gemini range. They did a lot of words in this range, the expressions range, and this one has the word and the little background for it. So just die cut that, matted and layered on some contrasting card. And finally, this watercolour background here that we did, I've used a Lavinia Stamps fairy. So this one here, stamped her in black, stamped these little bubbles around the edge and added a bit of white highlight with a paint pen. And then the sentiment again was from this Gina K Designs set, little Thinking of You set, and just popped that on a banner that was die cut from this Pink and Main set of sentiment strip dies. So just a couple of suggestions there of what to do with the backgrounds. I know a lot of you do appreciate that. It's nice for you to be able to envisage what to do with the prints that you've created. Still got this whole pile here to use up for something else. They'll just go into my little stash drawer, ready for when I need a pre-made background. But as always, hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave me a thumbs up. Don't forget to check out the links in the end card. I have lots of gel printing videos for you with lots of inspiration. But I shall see you again soon. That's all for now. Bye.